Hey guys, my name is Taylor, and I'm going to be talking to you guys about dose response curves for your MedChem 2 class. So we're going to talk about a couple things today. The first thing we're going to start off with is just some basics about dose response curves that you'll need to be able to read graphs correctly. The next thing we're going to talk about is how to compare different lines that are on one graph. The third thing is going to be some special situations that we want to look out for when we're reading these curves and how to answer problems with that. So let's jump into it. Let me grab my pointer. Okay, so the first thing we want to look at when we look at dose response curves are the big three of these curves. So the first one is going to be our slope. Second one is going to be our potency. Third is our efficacy. So efficacy is probably the easiest to understand. It's how effective a drug is, or our Emax. So the highest maximal response we get. So for this curve, we see our highest is all the way up here. We trace it over, we get 100% response. So we know that our Emax, 100%. The next thing we want to look at is the slope. The slope doesn't come up a ton in this lecture, but it's actually going to be really important in a few modules. So it's important that we at least learn how to recognize it right now. So slope is going to be how fast the curve takes off, or this kind of steepness here of this curve. Last thing is going to be potency. So potency is how much of a drug it takes to reach the Emax. So we don't actually calculate potency at the Emax. We want to calculate potency at EC50. So 50% of our Emax. So if our Emax is 100, we go to half of that, it's going to be 50. We take this line all the way over to our graph. This is going to be our potency point. So to get a number for that, we go all the way down to drug concentration, and we see that our potency is 10 for this graph. Okay, so those are the basics, and now let's talk a little bit about how you'll commonly see them on graphs. So usually what you'll see is a couple different lines on one graph. So this one isn't actually drugs, it's a bacteria comparison that I pulled from an FDA website, but it is still considered dose response curve, and it looks very similar to the drug response curve we just looked at. So the first thing we want to look at with these is our Emax. It's for this blue line, it's going to be a 1, which is the highest Emax full response. This green line down here is going to come in at about maybe 0.9, 0.95. We just see that it's a little lower than the blue line. So we see that this blue bacteria produces more of a response than this green bacteria, but not by much. All the way down here, we see this orange bacteria. So we know that this orange bacteria produces the least amount of response. Now, the next thing we want to look at is our potency. So we're going to start with just the potency for this blue line first. So we see that Emax is 1. So we want to go to 50% of that, which is 0.5, go all the way over here. This is going to be around our EC50, and when we drop down, we see it's about 10 to the second. So we know that our potency mark for the blue one is 10 to the second. So if we want to compare these different potency curves, we would see that this green one is a little under it in Emax, so we want to go a little under in potency. So we'd see that the potency is a little bit higher because we go over here, potency drops down here, and I'm going to show you a better example on this next slide of how to look at these different potency curves. So why would our potency be any different? So sometimes we have full agonists, which are molecules that bind to the receptor, and we get the best response from them, or the biggest explosion, if you will. And so this one we see here, our full agonists, we get 100% of this response, this really, really good response. But that's not always true. We know that we have partial agonists, which give us less of a response. And so our graph C here is a good example of that. We don't quite get 100%, but we still get some response, so it's considered a partial agonist. So how do we find potency for partial agonists? Kind of the same way we find it for full. So full, we know we go to our Emax is 100, we go to 50 for potency, and then we go over, drop down. So if our Emax is 50, we're going to want to go to 25, which is half of 50. So we go over to about 25, we drag all the way over to our C curve, and we drop down here. And so we know our potency is going to be somewhere around here for this one. And so that's how we would get different potencies for different curves that are a little bit lower or even moved to the side for different agonists. Okay, so that's just the basics of dose response curves. Please let me know if you guys have any questions.